You already know what you should do. You have known for a while. You have told yourself more than once. And the telling was not enough. It was not enough the second time either. In the 2nd century, the most powerful man in the known world had the same problem, and he wrote about it every morning for years, not for anyone else, in a private journal never meant to survive him, because the writing was the only thing that worked. The man commanding the largest empire on earth wrote about his own smallness, about how quickly the noise of power could pull him away from what actually mattered, about how easily he could drift into vanity or anger or the management of appearance if he did not actively, deliberately pull himself back. He needed to write the same reminders more than once, across different entries, because the first time had not been enough. This is not what wisdom looks like from the outside. From the outside, wisdom looks finished. What survived is not the conclusion of a philosophical system, but the practice itself, caught mid-motion in the private voice of someone for whom these ideas were not intellectual positions, but daily tools that required sharpening every morning to remain useful. The journal survived. We call it the Meditations. At the center of the practice was a single distinction that Marcus returned to more than any other. Some things belong to you, your opinions, your impulses, your desires, your aversions, the interpretation you place on what happens. These are yours, entirely, in every circumstance. Other things do not belong to you. Your reputation, your health, what other people decide to do, how events unfold, the future in every form it takes. These are not yours, regardless of how much energy gets directed at controlling them. Most suffering comes from treating the second category as though it belonged in the first, from spending the resources available for genuine agency on things that were never available to agency at all. This sounds simple. It is not simple. The application of it, against the actual grain of daily experience, requires repetition, precisely because it runs counter to the default operation of the mind. Marcus built the practice into the structure of his evenings. He reviewed the day not as an evaluation of performance, but as an honest inventory. You have likely done a version of this, lying awake at night running through what went wrong, what you should have said, what you will do differently. His version ran in a different direction entirely. Not punishment, not rehearsal, but calibration. What had actually been within his control that day? Where had he spent energy on outcomes that were never his to determine? The question was not whether he had succeeded, it was whether he had been present inside the life he was actually living, or somewhere else. Within the entries themselves, he applied another practice that operated at a different angle entirely. He reminded himself repeatedly of the emperors who had come before him, men whose names had been celebrated throughout the known world during their lifetimes, whose decisions had shaped the lives of millions, whose power had seemed permanent from the inside. Within a few generations they had become nothing. He was not doing this to produce despair. He was doing it to produce proportion. The concerns pressing on him in any given moment, held against the actual scale of time, revealed themselves as smaller than they felt. The scaling did not make them irrelevant. It made them survivable. The most common misreading of what he was practicing needs to be corrected directly. Stoicism does not ask for the suppression of emotion. It asks for something more precise and more difficult, a distinction between the event itself and the interpretation placed on top of it. The event is fixed. The loss, the failure, the rejection arrived and cannot be made to not have arrived. The interpretation is not fixed. It is always a choice, even in moments where it presents itself as the only possible response. The grief is real. The conclusion that the grief makes the life unlivable is an addition, not an observation. The practice is the repeated work of locating that addition, not eliminating the feeling, but refusing to surrender authorship of the meaning attached to it. This is why the present moment was not a preference for Marcus, but a structural necessity. The past cannot be changed, and directing agency toward it produces nothing except the experience of directing agency toward something that cannot respond. The future has not arrived, and everything constructed about it exists in a location where actual agency does not yet exist. The present is the only place where anything real can be done. Think about where your mind goes when you are sitting with someone you care about, and half of your attention is already somewhere else, planning the response to a message before the conversation in front of you has finished. The person across from you is real and present, and you are already gone. That extraction is not a single dramatic choice. It is what the mind does by default, every time it is not being actively returned. The practice Marcus describes is not formal. It is the repeated habit of noticing when attention has left and returning it without treating the departure as a failure. He describes doing this many times within a single day. The departure was not the problem. The departure was the condition. The practice was the return, and the return was available every time, regardless of how far the mind had wandered or how long it had been gone. He had more reasons than almost anyone in history to live permanently inside the future. The administration of an empire, the management of wars, the pressure of decisions whose consequences would ripple across millions of lives. He had every material justification for never being present. He practiced presence anyway, not perfectly, not permanently, but repeatedly, every morning, in the journal he never intended anyone to read. You already know what you should do. You have known for a while. The question is not whether you have time to practice returning. The question is where you are right now, in this moment, and whether that is actually where you meant to be.